Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
They told me family comes first. So I came second. For 32 damn years. That sentence wasn't just something I muttered under my breath that morning. It was carved into my bones like the rings in a tree, permanent proof that someone had been growing through pain for decades. Graduation day was supposed to feel like a finish line, a celebration of every late night, every ramen-fueled paper, every time I swallowed my pride to make room for other people's comfort. But for me, it was just Tuesday. Except with more heels and a polyester robe. The stadium was packed. Balloons, camera flashes, grandparents holding up homemade signs, parents crying into their overpriced coffee. I scanned the bleachers like a detective looking for evidence that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the invisible one today. Nothing. No sign of Linda and Frank, my parents, and definitely not of Ashley, the family's walking emotional support project. I already knew the answer, but I checked my phone anyway. One message from Mom, sent 23 minutes before the ceremony started. Honey, I'm so sorry. Ashley had a spa package she can't move. We'll FaceTime from the Himalayan salt cave. We're so proud. FaceTime. From the King salt cave. So I smiled. That was my first mistake. Not the fake kind of smile either, but the full, teeth-baring, dead-in-the-eyes smile they teach customer service reps who are just trying to make rent. I smiled for the cameras, for my friend Claire who came instead, for my academic advisor who looked more proud than my parents ever had. And somewhere in that smile, something inside me just broke. But not in a tragic, sobbing in the bathroom way. It was quiet. It was clean. Like the sound a wine glass makes right before it shatters. After the ceremony, Claire took me to lunch. I picked the place. I paid the bill. I made jokes about how graduation's not about who shows up, it's about who doesn't make you regret inviting them in the first place. Claire laughed, but she knew. She's seen enough of my family to know how they orbit Ashley like she's the ing son, and the rest of us are just burning up on entry. Between bites of avocado toast and sips of two warm mimosas, an idea started forming, not like a spark, more like an old pilot light reigniting. Revenge. Not loud, not messy. No screaming matches or Facebook rants. I was done asking to be seen. I'd make them look, whether they liked it or not. There were 12 people in my cohort. 11 had family there. That's like 99%. Or something. I'm bad at math, you do the numbers. When I got home that night, I walked past the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. My cap was lopsided, lipstick smudged, hair ruined by humidity and disappointment. But my eyes? They were clearer than they'd been in years. Like something had snapped back into focus. That's when I saw it, the box. It was sitting on the bookshelf, tucked behind old textbooks I'd meant to sell back, but never got around to. A small, oak box with a brass clasp, the kind you don't notice until you're ready to notice. Grandma Joan had left it for me a year before she passed. At the time, I was knee-deep in finals and thought, I'll open it when I graduate. And like the painfully obedient daughter I've always been, I waited. I wiped the dust off the lid and opened the clasp with a soft click that sounded like a door unlocking in my own head. Inside was a letter. My name was written in her slanted, looping script, the kind you only see in old recipe cards and love letters from World War II. Underneath the letter, something was wrapped in yellowing newspaper. The date caught my eye, April 22nd, 2008. My stomach twisted. That was the week Ashley had her first panic attack. The week everything in our house shifted permanently. I sat down on the couch, still in my graduation robe, and held the letter like it was made of glass. I didn't open it. Not yet. Not until I was ready. But I already knew, deep in my gut, that this wasn't just a letter. This was a map. A breadcrumb trail. Maybe even a final push from the only woman in my family who ever saw me as more than the background character in Ashley's endless soap opera. Outside, the The sun dipped below the horizon, turning the sky that soft orange that makes everything look like it's on fire. And there I was, sitting with my degree in one hand and a sealed envelope in the other, finally understanding what it meant to graduate not just from school, but from a lifetime of putting myself last. I smiled again. But this time, it wasn't fake. This time, it was war. The first thing I remember about Ashley isn't a moment or a quote or a photo in some dusty family album. It's a feeling, the feeling of being small in a room that was never built for you in the first place. It's the memory of watching a toddler scream at the top of her lungs because her cupcake had the wrong color frosting, and instead of telling her to calm down, Mom just handed her mine. And I, being the older one, the mature one, the goddamn default adult since I was 5, was expected to smile and say thank you. That's how it always was. The world bent around her meltdowns like it was scared to crack her open and see what was really inside. Christmases were the same year after year, a pattern so clear it should have been printed on wrapping paper. Ashley got everything she asked for: bikes, tablets, a goddamn puppy one year that she later gave away because it stressed her out. I got things like educational books, winter gloves, or, my personal favorite at age 10, a framed quote about hard work being its own reward. I never said anything. I thought that's what growing up meant. You watched the people around you get drunk off attention while you held the bottle and kept quiet. I think my 16th birthday was when the rut really started to set in, when I realized it wasn't just imbalance. It was AF ******ing system. I had invited a few friends over, nothing big, just pizza and a movie in the basement. Ashley showed up halfway through with tears in her eyes and claimed her boyfriend had broken up with her again. She was 14, barely dating long enough to remember his last name, but the performance was Oscar-worthy. Within minutes, my mom was holding her like she'd just watched her house burn down, and my dad handed her the keys to a used blue Civic, the same car I had been saving up for by working weekends at a bookstore. They told me it wasn't a birthday gift. It was because she needed stability right now. I got a sweater. Size too big. No receipt. That night, when I sat in my room, listening to Ashley post dramatic song lyrics on Facebook while Mom brought her warm cookies, I realized the difference wasn't love. It was worship. Ashley was the golden calf, and the rest of us were just waiting in the desert, starving for some damn attention that never came. The thing that stuck with me most was what the therapist said. We had one of those family therapy sessions after Ashley accidentally took too many sleeping pills, but not too many, just enough to guarantee a reaction. I was 17 then, applying to college, trying to escape. The therapist leaned forward, softened her voice, and said, "It's not that Ashley gets more, it's just different." And my mother nodded. My father nodded. Even Ashley, the walking storm cloud, nodded. But I just stared at them, wondering how different had come to mean better, louder, and always hers. Ashley once told me, right to my face, "You'll always be Plan B, Meg. You're too boring to be anyone's first choice." I don't even remember what I said back. Maybe nothing. Maybe I laughed. But something about that sentence stuck in my ribs like a cracked bone that never healed right. The worst part wasn't that she said it. It's that no one ever corrected her. No one pulled her aside and said, "Hey, don't talk to your sister like that." No one reassured me I wasn't boring or invisible or second best. So, eventually, I started to believe it. People say time heals everything, but that's only true if you're not spending every Thanksgiving listening to your parents brag about Ashley's newest job, or latest vacation, or whatever therapy du jour she's clinging to that month. They never ask about my work. Never ask about my friends. I got promoted last year, and they said, "Oh wow, that's great," before pivoting to how Ashley's yoga instructor says she's the most intuitive client he's ever had. But standing there now in my quiet apartment, robe still draped over the chair from graduation, the box open in front of me, I didn't feel small anymore. I felt something else, something heavier and colder and sharper. Maybe clarity. Maybe rage. Whatever it was, it made my hands shake a little as I pulled back the brittle newspaper from the second item in the box. It was a key. Small, old-fashioned, brass. The kind you'd find in an antique desk or a locked drawer someone didn't want you getting into. It clinked softly against the wood of the box, like it knew it had been waiting long enough. I unfolded the letter again, reading Grandma Jones' words over and over, as if the ink might change if I stared long enough. This opens the drawer in my bedroom I told no one about. Except you. She had never said those words out loud, at least not in a way I remembered. But now, with the evidence in my hand, I started piecing it together, the long glances she used to give me at family dinners, the way she'd pull me aside just to ask how I was doing, the way she always signed her cards with, "Don't let them tell you who you are." I slipped the key into my pocket and sat there in silence. Not the sad kind of silence. The kind that comes before a storm. The kind you build a plan in. It's strange how a small object like a key can change the weight of every memory you thought you'd already sorted out and boxed up neatly. That key stayed in my jeans pocket the entire next day, burning through the fabric like it had something urgent to say, like it had teeth. My parents were still checked into that overpriced spa retreat in Sedona, where Ashley was probably soaking in eucalyptus-scented water while pretending the world was too loud for her sensitive spirit. I knew their itinerary because Mom had texted the group chat hourly updates. Ashley's trying the chakra balancing massage, as if that information was something I'd treasure instead of want to burn. That made it the perfect time to make a quiet visit back to the house I tried to forget the second I moved out. Their neighborhood hadn't changed much, the same fake cobblestone mailboxes, the same couples walking dogs too small for their egos, the same silence behind every curtain. I still had my old house key, the one they never asked me to return, probably because they never thought I'd have a reason to use it again. The front door opened too easily, like the house itself was still used to me slipping in unnoticed. I didn't bother turning on the lights. I knew that place blindfolded. The way the floor creaked in the hallway just before Grandma Jones' door, the smell of stale potpourri and polished wood, it all came back, not as nostalgia, but as something harder, something sharper. Her room was exactly as she left it, untouched, like a shrine, which is ironic considering how often my parents acted like she was the oddball of the family. She was the only one who ever stood up for me, the only one who seemed to see the layers underneath the surface of our carefully rehearsed dysfunction. I walked straight to the vanity, the one with the antique drawers and the small floral carvings that always felt older than her. My fingers hesitated for a second before finding the small lock on the right-hand side, barely visible, almost decorative. I pulled the key from my pocket, slid it in, and heard the faintest click, like a whisper being answered. The drawer opened with resistance, sticking for just a second like it didn't want to give up its secrets all at once. Inside was a stack of envelopes, neatly arranged and bound with a silk ribbon, the kind you only see in old stationery shops or vintage journals. The first envelope held a birth certificate, not mine, but Ashley's. I stared at it for a full minute before I could process what I was reading. The last name wasn't Sanders. The date of birth didn't match what I'd always been told. The mother's name wasn't Linda. The signature was from a woman I'd never heard of. There was an adoption record clipped to the back. It was dated 6 months after my 4th birthday. I was told I was there when Ashley was born. I remembered it, or thought I did, a pink blanket, my mom holding her in the hospital, balloons, smiles. But now I wondered how much of that memory was just implanted over the years through repeated stories and photos staged to match a lie. This wasn't just forgetting a birthday or favoring one child over another. This was a fully fabricated life, built on a foundation of silence and smiling through bullshit. Under the birth certificate was a small white envelope labeled with my name and a date, my high school graduation. Inside was a savings bond, issued the same year I was born. $5,000. It felt like a fortune and an apology all at once. My grandmother had saved it for me all those years, and yet it had never been mentioned, probably because she knew it would be taken if anyone else found it. My hands shook a little as I held it. $5,000 wouldn't fix 32 years of being invisible, but it was something. It was proof that someone believed I mattered. Then I found the bank statements. Dozens of them, spanning over a decade, all labeled meticulously in Grandma Jones' tiny handwriting. At first glance, I didn't know what I was looking at: a joint account, frequent withdrawals, each annotated with names and notes. Then it hit me. Every transaction was linked to Ashley. Not just for school tuition or books, but for clothes, for travel, for therapy, even for some sort of medical treatment in another state I had never heard them talk about. The account wasn't Ashley's. It was mine. It was the college fund my grandmother had started when I was 5, the one I was told didn't grow enough to cover more than community college. They'd used it. Every damn penny of it. And not for me. I sat there in her room, surrounded by ghosts and paper, and the sudden realization that everything I thought was bad was actually worse. They hadn't just picked Ashley over me emotionally. They picked her over me financially, secretly, and systemically. And they never told me because they knew I'd never ask. I was too busy being the mature one, the one who doesn't make scenes, who doesn't cry, who doesn't get cars for her birthday. My fingers clenched the edges of one of the statements so tightly it almost tore, and I felt something dark settle into my chest. Not grief, not rage, but something colder. Resolve. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was done pretending. The envelope slipped from my lap and landed on the carpet, open, its contents spread like evidence at a crime scene. Because that's what this was, a crime, if not by law then by love. And now? It was my turn to take something back. You would be amazed how easy it is to play nice when you've already buried the last bit of care you ever had for someone. The invitation I sent out to my parents and Ashley was syrupy sweet, oozing with manufactured warmth and the kind of language that made it sound like I had turned the other cheek, healed all wounds, and just wanted us all to be together like a happy, delusional sitcom family. I told them it would be a celebration dinner to make up for the graduation, no hard feelings, just family, and I could practically hear Mom's mascara-sticky tears through the phone when she replied with too many exclamation marks. I spent the whole day preparing like it was a performance, because that's exactly what it was. I made the roast chicken Ashley always demanded on her birthday. I baked the same lemon tart Dad pretended to like even though he's always hated lemon. I cleaned the apartment spotless, set the table with the good dishes, not because they deserved it, but because I wanted them to be comfortable right before I flipped the floor out from under them. They arrived 15 minutes late, of course. Ashley came in first, sunglasses still on indoors, like she was fresh off a red carpet instead of a spa retreat. Mom was behind her, carrying a single balloon that said "You did it" in bold, metallic letters clearly bought last minute from a Walgreens. Dad followed silently, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, but committed to playing the role of peacekeeper. I hugged them all, not too tight, not too cold. Just enough to keep the illusion intact. Dinner started like any other. Small talk about how beautiful Sedona was, how Ashley really connected with her inner child during breathwork, and how the salt cave felt like being reborn but with better skin. I nodded. I smiled. I passed the chicken. I poured the wine. They didn't ask about my degree, my future plans, or the job offer I had just accepted 2 days earlier. It was fine. I didn't want their interest. I wanted their attention. When dessert came out, Ashley was already 3 glasses in and talking louder than anyone needed her to. That was when I handed her the box, a small, elegant package wrapped in ivory paper and tied with a satin ribbon. She squealed in that exaggerated voice she used for unboxings on her YouTube channel no one watched anymore, holding it up like I'd just given her a Cartier bracelet. "Meg, this is, wow. This is actually a real designer bag," she said, holding up the vintage purse with glittering eyes. I nodded and smiled like the doting sister I never was allowed to be. Then I said, casually as anything, "There's something inside, too." She unzipped the bag, reaching in with her perfectly manicured fingers, and pulled out a small black flash drive. Her face flickered confusion, suspicion, curiosity, like a slot machine spinning in her head. "It's your old vlogs," I said, sipping my wine. "I digitized everything. Thought it might be fun to watch." Dad perked up, probably relieved at the chance to focus on something other than awkward family dynamics. Ashley grinned, plugged the flash drive into the TV like she was about to host her own little film festival, and hit play. The screen lit up with familiar footage: Ashley in high school, Ashley at brunch, Ashley fake crying into the camera because being misunderstood is, like, literally trauma. Then came the edits. Quick, sharp cuts. Her calling mom a codependent disaster with zero boundaries. Her mocking dad's soft-spoken nature, calling him the human equivalent of a beige wall. She laughed about faking a panic attack to get out of jury duty, then another one to get out of helping me move apartments. "I mean, come on," she said to the camera, hair wrapped in a towel, glass of wine in hand. "They'll believe anything as long as I look sad enough. I only keep them around because they pay for my filler." The room went dead silent. Ashley's smile drained from her face like someone had pulled the plug on her entire personality. Mom's hand froze halfway to her mouth. Dad stared at the screen like it had personally insulted him. The video kept playing, but no one was watching anymore. They were all looking at Ashley. And then, slowly, at me. I stood up and walked over to the wine bottle, refilled my glass slowly, deliberately, like I had all the time in the world. I turned to face them, let the pause stretch just long enough for their brains to catch up to their guilt. "Oh," I said, blinking like I'd forgotten something. "I almost forgot. Dad, remember Megan's college fund?" The moment the words left my mouth, the whole room stopped breathing, like someone had sucked the air out through the television screen. Dad's jaw slackened, not from the wine, not from the chicken, but from the punch of those 7 words I'd been waiting 3 decades to say with a calmness that cut sharper than a scream ever could. "Dad, remember Megan's college fund?" I asked it like I was asking about the weather, like I hadn't found out 2 days earlier that it had been quietly drained to fund my sister's therapy retreats and bottomless yoga memberships. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was how unsurprised he looked. Ashley didn't say a word. Her mouth opened and closed like she was trying to figure out which lie to reach for, but they were all floating out of her grasp now. She blinked fast, the way she always did when tears were coming, but she didn't want to ruin her makeup. And then she bolted, straight for the door, her designer bag thudding against her side as if mocking her, every step echoing like a slammed door from childhood. She didn't even put on her shoes. Just grabbed them in her hand and disappeared out into the night. Mom stood up, stunned for a second, and then she followed, calling after her like it would undo what had just been shown in high definition. "Ashley, wait. She didn't mean it. She's just angry," she yelled as the door slammed behind her. And that's when I realized my mother would never understand the difference between anger and truth. She thought I blew things up because I was bitter, when really I had been silent for years out of love, out of duty, out of pathetic, misplaced hope that one day they'd finally look at me and see something worth defending. Dad didn't move, not even a twitch. He just stared down at his plate, fork still in hand, his expression blank in the way that only cowards and men who've made too many easy choices can pull off. I waited, maybe even hoped, for a moment of recognition, an apology, or at least a blink that said he understood what I'd done. But he just sat there, chewing his silence like it had flavor. I walked to the window slowly, letting my wine glass hang from my fingers, and looked out. Ashley was sitting on the curb of the parking lot, legs pulled up to her chest, mascara smeared into something unholy. Mom crouched beside her, hands waving, trying to comfort her, maybe asking if she was okay, maybe trying to rewrite the moment again, like she always did. Ashley rocked back and forth, sobbing with her whole body, as if the sound itself might win back sympathy. But something in me didn't respond the way I thought it would. There was no thrill, no satisfaction, no cinematic swelling of victory. Just a hollow kind of silence inside my chest, the kind you only hear when the engine turns off after driving too far on fumes. Mom looked up at the window then, saw me standing there, and yelled through tears and fury, "Why would you show that? Why would you do this to her?" Her voice cracked like she thought this was some petty revenge, some tantrum born of jealousy. I didn't yell back. I didn't cry. I just spoke clearly through the glass and into the air like a prayer I'd rehearsed too many times. Why would you believe her for 30 years and not me? There it was. The question that had lived in my ribs for so long it had learned to breathe with me. She shook her head like that wasn't fair, like I'd wounded someone who hadn't already been bleeding me dry for half my life. But I turned away. I'd said everything I needed. Back in my apartment, the lights felt too bright. I kicked off my shoes, peeled off the clothes that still smelled like lemon tart and confrontation, and collapsed onto the couch with Grandma's letter in my hand again. The last line hit different now. Some debts aren't worth collecting. Some wins don't feel like victory. At the time I first read it, I thought it meant forgiveness. Now, I wondered if it was something else. Maybe a warning, maybe a curse. The silence stretched deep that night. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't play music. I just sat there in the quiet I'd earned, letting it settle over me like a blanket that wasn't warm but at least wasn't suffocating. It was around midnight when I picked up my phone. Notifications had started rolling in. One from Ashley's Instagram. I clicked, even though I knew I shouldn't. A photo, her face tear-streaked, eyes puffy, hair pulled into a messy bun. The caption read, "When your own blood turns against you, sometimes all you have is your own strength." Hashtag toxic family energy, hashtag healing journey. The comments were filled with hearts and virtual hugs and affirmations from strangers who believed every word. "You're so strong, girl. Cut them out. Protect your peace. We love you, queen." My thumb hovered over the comment button. I typed, "You forgot to mention the part where you drained my college fund and called Dad a beige wall." Then I stared at it, read it again, and deleted it. Because I realized something I hadn't quite been ready to admit until then. I didn't need to win. I didn't need them to know the truth. I didn't need applause. I just needed silence. Real silence. The kind that isn't filled with explanations or justifications or the endless loop of trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding me. I put the phone down, let the darkness hold me, and thought about that final question, the one that would echo in every listener's head the moment the screen went black. Was I justified? Or was I just bitter? You decide.